Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What Do You Mean You've Never Seen? My name is Jonathan, and I'm your host. With my co-hosts that are always with me, I have here Jennifer.
Hi, everyone.
And Max.
Hello, everybody.
And we're excited to be here with you. We have a very special guest host with us today, a friend of ours that we've worked with for a long time named Tommy Schwanfelder. Say hi to the people, Tommy.
Hi, people. This is Tommy Schwanfelder.
What do you want to tell us about yourself, Tommy?
I am from Connecticut originally, moved down to Florida in 1998, and I've been working at Disney doing stuff all over the place since 1998.
It's a long time.
Got to tour the world, do a Disney tour, and just perform in shows and parades, and I got to serve burgers. I've done lots of stuff.
We're very excited to have you with us today, and we are talking about a very, very prestigious, very important film.
And so is God, apparently.
Maybe they don't want us to talk about it.
We're struck by lightning. We are talking today about Gone with the Wind, the cinema classic that was released in 1939, starring Vivien Leigh, Clark Gable, Leslie Howard, Olivia de Havilland, Hattie McDaniel, directed by Victor Fleming, and produced by David O. Selznick. There's a whole lot of interesting stories behind the making of this film. If you ever want to read about it or watch TV movies about it, it was a big deal. The book was hugely popular, and the making of the movie was like entertainment news the entire time. It was like the equivalent of like when Titanic was being made. Like everyone was talking about it. Everyone wanted to be in it. Jeez. And it was a darkened story.
I can see it out the window.
Oh, dear. So anyway, we are here to talk about Gone with the Wind. I believe I am the only one of the four of us that has seen this movie before. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Wow. Just going to give you a real quick description of the plot. It focuses on Scarlett O'Hara. She's our heroine. She starts off as a she's very popular. She's very popular. Like I think she's like 16 or 17 when the movie starts. It goes all the way until she's like in her mid-20s. She has a lot of adventures and misadventures dealing with society. She's a very headstrong person, and she's very intelligent. She's very shrewd, and falls in love with her neighbor, Ashley Wilkes, but he wants to marry someone else. He wants to marry his cousin, Melanie Hamilton, who's played by Olivia de Havilland.
That was one of my questions. So they are cousins.
They are first cousins.
Oh, first.
Yes. And their family has been marrying cousins for a long time, which is in the film's narrative, the reason why Melanie is so sickly is because she's the result of like generations and generations of
Inbreeding.
Intermarriage.
They gloss over that so quick in the movie.
They do.
Okay.
Okay.
So it just follows Scarlett's adventures from like the first scene takes place the day before the war starts, follows her all the way through the war until the post-war era and the Reconstruction, and she gets really, really rich. She has a lot of encounters with Rhett Butler, who's this scallywag, rapscallion type character who's a blockade runner during the war, and they like each other, but they don't love each other, but then they do love each other, and they end up getting married kind of just for the heck of it because they're very, very much alike, and they're both outcasts of society, and the rain, Spain.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of rain in this episode, folks. But saddle in.
Yeah.
We're just going to go for it.
We're just going to call it atmosphere.
Maybe then during the intermission part of the film, we can just do ASMR and just let them listen to the rain.
So yeah, it chronicles both her struggles with getting her farm back up and running after the war is over, and then she marries Rhett Butler, and then they become fabulously wealthy and have marital problems from there, and it's a really, really long movie.
Yeah.
It's almost 4 hours long.
Yeah.
But kind of worth it.
It
Yeah.
absolutely
I was
is.
into it.
So Gone with the Wind won a bunch of Oscars. It won Best Picture. It came out the same year as The Wizard of Oz, and it beat The Wizard of Oz for Best Picture.
Oh, wow.
Vivien Leigh won Best Actress. Hattie McDaniel won Best Supporting Actress. She was the first African-American performer to win a competitive Oscar. And she even beat Olivia de Havilland. And, you know, to beat someone who's playing a person who's sick and dying the whole movie, like that's quite an accomplishment. Because that's like super awards bait right there. And it is, adjusted for inflation, the highest grossing film of all time, with approximately $3.44 billion in ticket sales.
Wow.
Wow.
What would be the next closest after that?
As far as I know,
Grease
the next
2.
closest.
Probably.
It is Grease 2.
Just to give us an idea.
The next closest after that would be Avatar, which is in the 2 point something range.
So blows it out of the water.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Obviously, it's very venerated. It's won a lot of awards. It has a lot of controversy surrounding it as well because it depicts the antebellum South in a positive light,
Right.
But we'll get into that when we get into the discussion of the movie. So what I want to know is, and I'll ask each of you this question, what did you, who are watching this for the first time, know about the film and the plot prior to your viewing experience? And we'll start with our guest.
Oh, thank you. I knew the basic gist of the film, what it was about. Any cultural reference or joke I understood. Like anytime there was a joke on a TV show or a comedy sketch, Carol Burnett with the curtains, everything, of course, I knew exactly what all these references were, but I'd never actually sat and watched the film before. But again, culturally, I knew everything I needed to know about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really about it. And, I'll never go hungry again. Tomorrow's another day. All the cliched lines. And talking about my husband, he saw it once and he loved it. And he said the first time he watched it, he's like, oh, there's so many cliches. But then he's like, no, this was the cliche. This was the original. This is what created all of the things that we know and reference.
Yeah.
This was the original.
It's where the cliches came from, isn't that crazy?
Exactly.
Right.
And so many of them, too. What about you, Jennifer? What did you know about the movie?
About the same. I think I pretty much knew what happened. I knew about Rhett Butler. I knew about Scarlett kind of having to, go from rich to poor to rich again. I knew that much. Like I said, I knew about the curtain close. I pretty much knew all that stuff. I mean, it's hard to talk about did I know the plot of the movie? I guess not, but it's not really a linear story anyway. A lot happens because it goes over the course of a long time. So I think I pretty much had the gist of it before going into it.
Yeah, I'd say about the same. I knew the gist of the plot was it's about a woman during the Civil War and going through wartime. It's actually pretty similar. I grew up in Atlanta, near Atlanta, in Roswell, and in 5th grade we read a similar book with a similar plot. It was called Leanne Civil War. Sort of the same story. It's about a girl who works in a mill and is then arrested by the Union soldiers and taken up north, and sort of is a similar plot structure. And then it's sort of glossing over that the South wasn't who we're actually rooting for in the Civil War, sort of humanizing the struggles that the women in this time went through.
Right.
So that's, it's sort of what I knew of the plot was sort of like that, basically. I knew it was something similar to that.
Yeah, the story is told very much from the female perspective of the women of the time, the parts of the war that the women would have been witness to, which is very interesting. I've seen this movie all the way through a couple of times, I believe. It was one of, as we said on our preview from the previous episode, it was one of our grandmother's favorite movies. She loved, she loved Red Butler. She was just she worshipped Red Butler. They had a poster of Gone with the Wind in their garage. She collected little porcelain figurines she had one of Scarlett and Rhett from the barbecue scene in the beginning, and then Scarlett's red dress that she wears when she has to go after India has told everybody that she was canoodling with Ashley.
Which is so funny because all those iconic dresses that you see on the figurines or on the plates and everything, those dresses are only in the movie for a minute, 5 minutes. That's it.
And she wears her poor lady clothes way more than she wears the rich lady stuff.
Yeah, the red dress. I'm the birthday scene. It's over. Okay.
Yeah, it was very quick.
And of course the curtain dress is super iconic. What I didn't remember about this movie is just how episodic the storyline is.
Yeah.
It's very much, we don't have a central plot that runs through the whole thing. It's just this happened to Scarlett, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then she did this, and then she did that, and whatever. Which is still good. It's I think if it had been made later, it probably would have been a TV miniseries or something rather than a motion
thoughts
picture.
exactly.
Because it's
today.
It really does have that sort of every scene is like its own thing type of feel, where you could even spread out the viewing experience over a long period of time, like a couple of days or something, and just watch, a couple of bits at a time, and you're not going to be lost because they don't really reference stuff that happened before.
Right.
And like the second half of the movie is a completely different experience than the first half.
Right.
It becomes very much a relationship drama between Rhett and Scarlett, where that was barely even touched on in the first half. The beginning is very epic, and there's the scene where she goes to find Dr. Mead, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of wounded soldiers, and all the explosions and the burning of Atlanta, like that's all like huge epic stuff, and also very impressive visually for the time the movie was made.
A lot of mannequins.
So many mannequins. And then as the movie goes, the world just seems to get smaller and smaller and smaller until at the very end, it's just 4 people in a room waiting for Melanie, preparing for Melanie's death. And then the end is just Rhett and Scarlett by themselves. Very interesting way to tell this story. And it's a very interesting story in that it just does become such a small personal drama, and the emotions and the way that these people have hurt each other, and they just seem to have so many misconnections between the two of them, because she wants him at a time when he doesn't want her, and then the seesaw switches the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
And
will they or won't they?
The whole second half of the movie is pretty much just focused on their relationship, because the money problems are out the window. Oh, it's like now all of these struggles that Scarlett's been facing since the beginning of the war, societal acceptance, financial security. She has everything she needs now. We get to really focus on where she needs to grow and where her deficiencies are, like as a human being, which I think is a really, really interesting thing. It's not the sweeping epic full-time like a movie like Titanic or Lord of the Rings is, where it's like an epic conclusion where like big things happen at the end. It's a very, very quiet ending, and I think that's why it resonates so much with people, because in the end it's a story about people. It's not necessarily a story about, it's not a war story.
Right.
It's a personal story that's told with war as the backdrop. That's kind of what I took away from this viewing experience, having seen it before, and all the times it's been parodied and discussed and all that stuff. So let's talk about thoughts and impressions on the film. Was it an interesting watch? If you have any thoughts about the length, the pace, the action. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Max.
Yes. I loved this movie. I did not go into it like anticipating liking it at all. I was dreading watching this movie. I thought it was going to be slow and boring, and like I sort of expected it to be like the pace of The Godfather, but just not as interesting to me. And it surprised me. It had me from like right in the beginning when she's talking to those two twins, and I'm like, is she going to have sex with these two twins? And what is this? Are they about to do a tap dance? Like, what's happening? Because they kept like zooming in on her and like having these really like crazy camera movements. And you see Scarlett O'Hara with her crazy eyes, and just from scene to scene, it's just like, wow, this girl is like actual psychopath Scarlett O'Hara. She is on crack. She could do anything. She could murder anyone. And I was excited from scene to scene. Like, what is she going to be wearing? What is she gonna do? What's gonna happen? Like, I want to know, what is this just absolute psychopath about to do next? And I ate it all up, and I could keep going, and I could have kept going after the film. I want to see like a follow-up mini-series to this where she's, just like an axe murderer in a house. Like, I want it all. Like, I could keep going forever with this woman, because she's just that compelling.
So you want an American Horror Story follow-up?
Yes.
American Horror Story Terra.
Yes. I want that exactly. That's exactly what I want.
Well, we will have to show you the sequel miniseries Scarlet at some point.
Ooh, yes.
Yes.
Let's start that
It's
right
really
now.
long. It's even longer than this movie. All right, Tommy, how about you?
Same thing. I didn't dread dread watching it, but I'm like, okay, 4 hours. And I actually ended up splitting it into 2 nights. At the intermission, I flipped my DVD because I watched it on DVD. But I made it into a 2-night event. But same thing, I was just enraptured watching this movie from the very beginning because I thought, oh, it's going to be this long, drawn out, like you said, The Godfather, just this kind of boring thing. I was glued to my TV watching this. I didn't feel there was a dull moment. There were a few little slowdown parts, but I never felt like, oh, I can go to the bathroom now. Like, there was none of that kind of stuff. I was so engaged, I had to just keep watching this. And I knew there was the miniseries Scarlett, whatever, but I think I've invested enough time in Scarlett and her friends at this point. But so we'll get to that. Maybe in a few months we'll get to that. But I absolutely loved this film. I found that visiting some of these classics that I've heard about or known about but never watched. Last summer, I finally watched Jaws for the first time. And I was like, this is a really good movie. Same thing with Gone with the Wind. This is a really long but good movie.
What about you, Jennifer?
Same thing. I watched it in 2 parts. I didn't get to the halfway point the first night. I think I watched an hour and a half, and then I watched the next 2.5 hours. But the nice thing about this movie is you can do that because, you said, it's almost like a miniseries. You could split it up into 3 or 4 parts if you wanted to, because even though you want to know what happens, it's not necessarily like you said, a very particular plot that you're watching. You're just watching her whole life. This movie reminded me of. You ever see that SNL sketch with Nicolas Cage and he's playing himself and parodying himself and he's all the dialogue is either whispered or screamed and everything in the movie is on fire?
Yes.
I thought about that during this movie. This movie made me feel very hot because all the clothes look suffocating.
Oh, yeah.
And they all look sweaty.
They all look so uncomfortably warm throughout the movie.
So that was the one thing that made me very uncomfortable. I was like, it's so hot. They're wearing so much clothes. That curtain dress looked like it was 1,000 degrees.
Yeah. And pounds.
Yeah. Heavy. But the biggest thing I thought, the characters in this movie are anything but one note. They are so dimensional. I was getting whiplash from deciding whether I liked Scarlett, whether I hated Scarlett, whether she was insufferable, whether she was resourceful and cool and smart. I just I went back, and same thing with Rhett too. Even Melanie. At first I was like, she's dumb and naive, and then I'm like, but no, she's a good person and she knows what's going on the whole time. I think I have a lot of thoughts on Melanie, but I think we'll get there. But yeah, the characters are so fully formed. You hate them, then you love them, then you hate them, then you love them. Which I just, like you said, I was just glued. I was fascinated.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody does something that surprises you.
Yeah.
Even
each
Mammy.
one of them, even Mammy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
even
Mammy puts on that red petticoat, man.
Yeah. Even that.
In the end, she is all in on Rhett Butler, and she hated him in the beginning of the movie.
And
She looks fly as hell in that red petticoat.
And I even wrote in my notes, when he saw that she was wearing it, because he said the only person's approval he ever really wanted was Mammy's. He says that line about the only person's approval I ever saw was hers. And when he finally got it, and even she admitted, she's like, yeah, I should have given you more of an opportunity earlier. I was like, oh.
Their relationship is very heartwarming.
Right.
Particularly you don't see it coming that Rhett's doesn't care about anybody's approval. He doesn't care about what society thinks of him until after they have the daughter and he's trying to help the daughter be accepted by society. But the person whose approval he cares most about is Scarlett's Mammy. What a cool thing for that character. What an interesting trait for that character to have. Right. What were you going to say, Max?
Oh, I was going to say even that first guy she marries surprises you because he dies instantly. I think I looked down to take a note on my phone.
You missed it, yeah.
Yeah, I took a note on my phone and I missed him dying completely.
Charles Hamilton.
Yeah.
Because that's Ashley's brother?
It's Melanie's brother.
Yeah.
Melanie's brother.
Yeah, like a young Gene Wilder, that guy looked like.
Yeah, he seemed to be cast specifically so that you would think he was a goon.
Yeah.
Right.
It was oh no, this guy's not very attractive and
just a dork. Yeah.
And then Andy is mad at Scarlett for the whole rest of the movie because Scarlett prevented her from marrying her cousin.
Yeah. And I
carried that grudge.
I thought he was going to have some sort of at least a war note. I figured that he was going to die because of the way he was acting in that whole war meeting thing they were having, but I thought he was going to at least have one high note before that happens, but no, he just dies.
Is he the one who passed away from smallpox or something?
Pneumonia, I think they say.
Not even in war. war. And he didn't die on the field.
He gets sick.
Oh, I missed that completely. Yeah.
He gets some kind of a disease, and then it turns into pneumonia. And he dies, and it's like
I think
gone.
the letter that they wrote to Scarlett saying he died was he didn't die in battle, but it was no less noble. He died of pneumonia. It was something along those lines.
A lot of communication during the first section of this movie with like just letters that are on screen.
Oh,
There's not even like nobody even like reads it. You
gotta
sit
be a
there and
fast
read it
reader
yourself.
too, because some of those letters are long.
I particularly like the one where after Scarlett and Melanie give away their wedding rings to the cause, and Rhett Butler goes and gets them back for them and mails them back and writes this really lovely long note to Melanie about how he didn't want to break her heart and
how noble
it was, and the war effort needs the money, but it doesn't need this from her. And then at the bottom it says, P.S. I also included Mrs. Hamilton's ring.
Savage. Rhett is savage.
He is savage.
And I
love it.
am here for it.
Right.
It reminded me of Captain Von Trapp in Sound of Music. Just savage, here for it.
But 100%. It's that
100%.
low key, like, oh really? I meant to accuse you. Like it's that sort of.
Yes, exactly. He has got her number from the first minute he lays eyes on her.
Yeah.
And you could tell it just drives her nuts because she's so used to all of this adulation and especially from men, maybe not necessarily from other women, but from the men, like, oh, you're so beautiful, Scarlett, I love you. And he's like, you're kind of just a bitch. Yeah. And he's like, I like that you're a bitch, but you're a bitch. And she's like, yeah.
Right.
It's great. It's great. I love their relationship, but we must talk about something very important right now.
What's that?
And that would be the eyebrows in this movie.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have thoughts on
Tell us
eyebrows.
about the eyebrows.
Okay, so Scarlett had these great, made her eyes look dinner plates. They were so huge because she had these really high arched eyebrows. Rhett's eyebrows confused me a little bit because they were sort of that like triangle shape. But all of Rhett's look confused me a little bit. And correct me if I'm wrong because you're the costuming person on this podcast, Jonathan, but I felt like Rhett looked like he was in a different movie. None of, like from his hair to his clothes, he didn't look like anyone else there. And I don't know if that was supposed to be indicative of his status because it seemed like, everybody else was rich too, but he was like the most rich. But it almost seemed like he was styled more to the time period the movie was made and less to the time period that it took place. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know that much about 1860s fashion, but I feel like they definitely did that on purpose because he definitely stands out. You see him in the whole sea of people, he stands out, just like Scarlett stands out amongst the women.
Yeah. I don't know if there's necessarily an argument to be made that it's not period appropriate, but I do feel like Rhett is supposed to be fashion forward because I think he gets a lot of his fashion from Europe.
Okay.
Whereas everybody in the South is like, it's all very, very
local,
antebellum American South clothing. And Rhett is definitely very stylish. And you're absolutely right. He totally looks different from any of the other men.
Yeah.
But I think it's because he's supposed to be more cosmopolitan. Now, whether or not that's like completely accurate to the time period, I'm not sure. But that's always been my impression is that this guy he's like a metrosexual in the 1860s.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But he
is on the cutting edge, and throughout the movie, he's always dressed like to the nines in every scene he's in. Whereas like sometimes the other men are in more casual clothing, but he is always dressed up. He's always got like an ascot and like tails. And there's one scene where he even has a cane and a cape, like the Phantom of the Opera.
Colonel Sanders outfit too. Did you guys see that?
Well, I thought Colonel Sanders when I first looked at him. I'm like, oh, I'm the Colonel.
I mean, he's got that exact like white with the red bow tie at one point. I was like, ooh, Colonel Sanders.
Makes you
hot Colonel Sanders.
Right? Wait, I mean,
Colonel Sanders.
Definitely.
But
great eyebrows on both of them. They looked great.
Now talk to me about Melanie's eyebrows, though.
Oh, Melanie just looked so pale. Hers were bad, but she just looked bad. She looked sick the whole movie, and that was kind of the point. But at one point, I felt her eyebrows completely disappeared. Yeah, so that
sometimes they look like little caterpillars.
Yeah.
She had a show at Pete House later, so she had to, instead of gluing him down, she's like, just get him out of there.
Yes.
And at some points, Rhett's eyebrows completely disappeared into his hat. It was great, yeah.
But he had the very triangle, like angry cartoon eyebrows at one point.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I agree with you.
Face.
The first thing I thought of when we started the movie, because, the first part is, Scarlett and the Charlton twins and all that. And then once you get to 12 Oaks where the barbecue scene happens, I was like, wow. Olivia de Havilland looks like she's already dying. And she looked that way the whole time.
Right.
She never looked healthy at all. It always looked like she was just 2 inches away from I have to sit down. I'm so tired.
She's got the flutters.
She has no energy whatsoever. I mean, she is a dynamic character, but physically, she just appears on the verge of collapse at all times.
Right.
And it's that old school Hollywood makeup. It looks fine for when you're watching it all, but they've painted the age lines or whatever. That's why I wasn't sure. What is the time span of this film? Is it 10 years about?
I think
it might be around 10.
Because she ages so fast for Melanie.
Yeah.
I mean, the lines they draw on her and her eye bags and it's that Hollywood makeup to make her look older, and I get it, but that's why I wasn't sure about where Scarlett looks amazing and Rhett looks amazing throughout the whole film. I understand why Melanie has to look sick as it goes on, but they painted her up.
Yeah, if it was a play.
Yeah, if it was a play, exactly.
Yeah, and I guess kudos to Olivia de Havilland for letting them make her look that bad.
Right.
She looks bad the whole time.
Right.
She was like, I want that off. She did get an Oscar eventually for a different movie, but.
And okay, correct me if I'm wrong, and we can edit this out if I have, but I believe she just died.
Last year?
Very recently.
She did, you're right.
Yeah.
She was the last surviving cast member from the movie.
Well, good for her, because she looked like she was dead back in 1939. She lasted
she dies
all this
in the
time.
movie and then outlived everybody else. So yeah, let's talk about the cultural and prestige status of this movie. Does it live up to the hype? I'm going to ask Max first.
I think it exceeds the hype.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is not a movie that people have been telling me, oh, you have to watch this. It's sort of known that it's out of date now and no one's pushing you to watch this anymore. But I feel like someone should have, because this movie is awesome. It's so much better than I ever expected it to be. It really is. It's so compelling. It is a soap opera. It is it has cadences of a thriller or a psychological thriller almost, with not nearly as much death as there should have been. I wanted to see way more people die.
So the Civil War didn't have enough death for you?
No,
The body count wasn't high enough in this movie for Max.
The Civil War was fine. It was fine. It had plenty enough death for me, but I wanted to see more people die by the hand of actual psychopath Scarlett O'Hara.
How about, and I had forgotten that she shoots that Union soldier
she straight
in
up
the face.
amazing.
She shot him in the face.
I wanted so much more of that.
In the face?
Yeah.
He had an exploded
Right in the face, and I wanted so much more of that. I wanted her going around with an axe. I wanted her to kill everybody. I wanted her to kill what's his face that she's pining over for the whole movie.
Oh, Ashley?
Ashley, yeah.
Oh,
I wanted her
Ashley
to kill him in the end. I wanted her to kill Rhett Butler in the end. I wanted her to just go crazy. I wanted to see her go absolutely insane. Just go off.
All right.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
So I just want to add that moment when she shoots him in the face, because I wrote that. Did she shoot him in the face? I wrote it on my notes. But then it's that moment of where you see Melanie, who's this, she's so helpful and everything. It's the one moment in the film, and I just wrote, Melanie has tasted blood. It's when she sees that he's died, because she's got Ashley's sword. She's ready to fight as well, even though the guy's already been shot. But you see a change in Melanie's face, in her eyes, okay, now we got to get rid of him. We got to bury him. She already has plans, and you never see that side of her again throughout the whole film. But Melanie has tasted blood or seen it, and now she's ready.
Yeah,
that was
great. Down that. They could have gone full Thelma and Louise at that point.
Yeah.
In a buggy.
Would have loved to see it.
Not in a car.
But she was great in that scene. Seeing her both absolutely overwhelmed with everything, but trying to stay in it, be okay, what can I actually do to be helpful in this? Because it was great.
That is a tour de force performance in that scene.
Yeah.
Because she comes out, she's willing to fight, even though she's completely weak and can barely walk. But then when Sue Ellen and Corrine hear the gunshot, she pops out of the window and she becomes oh, don't worry, chickens, everything's fine. Like suddenly her energy, she has like a miraculous recovery. And then as soon as she closes the window, she's like collapses again.
Yeah. She goes from everywhere to like, I'm so weak I can barely stand, to, okay, we gotta drag this body out of here into the woods. Let's start up. Like, she's the ultimate friend to have in that situation.
Yeah.
I almost thought that she was going to suggest that they eat him because I knew they didn't have food.
I thought that might have been on the table.
I feel like if he hadn't had so much money on him, maybe they would have.
Yeah.
But he had like $60 or $70 just in the one pocket.
I kind of would have loved to see this become a cannibal movie as well.
Fried green tomato situation.
Like, this movie could have gone anywhere and I would have followed it, basically, yeah.
Well, how about you, Tommy? How do you feel about the hype of the film, or do you feel it lives up to it, or what's your thoughts on the prestige of it?
I mean, same thing that he said, like, it's not a movie that's been shoved down my throat by people like, you have to see this, oh my God, you haven't seen it, that kind of situation. But just as an American iconic film, American Film Institute, top 10, whatever, it absolutely stands up to any prestige that it has. It absolutely stands up to it. I agree completely. That's like I said, I'm 43 years old. I just saw this for the first time. I loved it. And I love that you said it was very episodic, because one of my other notes was, especially the first half hour of the film, it's an episode of Real Housewives. It is. That's what this movie is. Like, then it turns into a soap opera, like you said. Then it turns into, this kind of a film. Then it turns into this. But a lot of the movie is Real Housewives stuff.
It's true.
100%.
It's so ahead of its time. How about you, Jennifer?
Okay, so I am stealing a comment from Tommy's Facebook page, actually. I wanted to quote this exactly because I thought it was so well written. Tommy's got a friend named Vic Keenan who gave me permission to share this, and it's so much better than anything I could have said. So I'm going to just read it verbatim. So Vic says, it's really an impressive piece of film production and great performances. The script and acting also bolster up so much of the weaker writing from the original novel. That said, the sumptuousness and the strength of acting is exactly why it is so easy to get sucked into the narrative viewpoint that minimizes the atrocities of slavery and the Reconstruction era abuses that are mostly hinted at in the film. Scarlett's ongoing tragedies and peril are examples of the very real rhetoric that was used to, quote, protect white womanhood, quote, what are functional Klan meetings and a lynching are glossed over via euphemisms and romanticized because the film leverages them in service to Scarlett. It's because Gone with the Wind is such a well-done movie that it's really important to keep those ideas in the forefront. It's basically like enjoying Sopranos or Breaking Bad, incredibly well done, written and acted art, but beware forgetting to remain critical of the protagonists or it actually becomes a different kind of art. Vivien Leigh is still one of the greatest. She sells every bit of it. That's the end of what Vic said. And I definitely could not have said it better. I think that completely encompasses how I felt at the end of this movie.
Yeah, and Scarlett is such a compelling character. And at first she's just this whiny, hissy fit throwing Southern belle who doesn't care about anybody or anything except for herself. And I mean, she is selfish throughout. She never becomes like,
she never really learns.
She never really learns to be a better person. But through circumstances, she reveals the better aspects of her character that were probably there all along. When she comes back to Tara and takes over because her father has lost his mind, because her mother has died, and she runs that place. She takes care of everybody because none of them are capable of taking care of themselves. They need a strong leader. Yeah. And she is a very, very strong leader. And then she goes to Atlanta and starts her own business and makes it a huge success off the back of prisoner work, prisoner labor, which is not good. But again, she's not a heroic character, but she takes care of the weaker and the lesser people that surround her. And in that way, she is somewhat heroic. Yeah. Because she's not just taking care of herself, she's taking care of everybody.
Well, that was my favorite part of the movie when she was coming back from, the as God is my witness, I'll never go hungry again. And I believe it's her dad, I guess, that questions like, what are you doing working in the field? And she says, I will not make them do anything I'm not willing to do myself. And she won me over in that moment. Even though I hated her for the first, 90 minutes of the movie, I was like, this woman is insufferable. She's the worst. But she totally won me over. And that's why I said I was getting whiplash back and forth. Like, do I love her? Do I hate her? And she's nothing if not resourceful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when Pa is chiding her about treating Prissy, Mammy,
Right.
and Pork as they're treating them, making them work too much. And that's when she's like, look, I'm not asking them to do anything I won't do.
Right.
Right, because they make the comment to her, it's like, oh, we're house people. We don't know
how to milk a cow.
we don't milk the cow. We don't work in the fields.
But she was also saying, she's like, I'm not going to make, I'm here doing the work too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Even Sue Ellen. Ugh.
Sue Ellen is she's bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
She's like, I hate Scarlett. Oh God, shut up.
I'm gonna be an old
maid.
I'm just like, well, it doesn't seem like you're trying too hard.
Right.
You just gotta, reconstruction. Go out and just talk to any man.
Make some effort.
Yeah,
Jeez.
like any effort.
she
Leave the
just wants
house
to sit
every
there
once in a
and
while.
let the man do all the work. Whereas Scarlett is the exact opposite. She goes out and she'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go get the man that's gonna if I need the man's help, I'm gonna go to him and ensnare him in my.
I'm gonna go get Sue
Yeah.
Ellen's man specifically.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing
Frank
to
Kennedy.
watch. Amazing to watch her just be like, oh, I'm gonna take this man real quick, and just Mammy looking at her like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, I'm back in the buggy.
Yeah, she's like on the back of the buggy being like, wow, you're a monster.
I totally
What
thought
are you doing?
when Scarlett was like, can I put my hand in your pocket because it was cold? I thought she was going to like steal money from him.
That's what I thought too.
Steal his money?
That's what I
That's
thought.
the thing about Scarlett.
she was
is
flirting? Was
You
that-
don't know what
Yeah.
she's about to do ever.
No, you never know what she's capable of.
Yeah, she could do literally everything and anything, and she has crazy eyes the whole time, and it's awesome.
Yeah. But oh my God, isn't she just beautiful though?
Oh, she's gorgeous.
That shot of her eyes when they're all sewing and like they can hear the cavalry
Yeah.
coming, but it's that close up on Scarlett's eyes. It's that very
going
like
back and
Morticia
forth,
Adams
yeah.
with like the lighting across, and her
That
eyes
was a
going back
really
and
good
forth.
scene, too.
And they're all sweating like you were talking about earlier. Like everyone's just sweating.
Right. So hot. Ugh. It was very hot watching this.
Very hot. Yeah.
Very hot.
It was very dusty.
Yes.
Red dust.
Yes, clay.
Yeah.
Love clay in the air.
I did like when she threw the red dirt in the carpetbagger dude's face.
Yeah, where did that dirt come from? Was she just carrying around
what's his
dirt?
name?
No, it's from the previous scene.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
I forgot that she
Ashley
had
gave it
dirt.
to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
The red, with his very British Southern accent, the red earth of Tara. He puts it in her hand.
You know,
and she just.
Ashley, I couldn't pay
Hangs on to
that
him.
much attention to.
I
Yeah.
was
Quite
so
honest.
not enamored
Like,
with Ashley at all. What
yeah.
does Scarlett see in
I
him?
wrote like one of my earliest notes was just like, I don't get it. Ashley seems like a bitch. What is it
Yeah.
because he's blonde or something? I don't get it.
I think my opinion of and this is like something that's been discussed over and over and over again in the history of the movie and the book. I think the biggest attraction for her is that he's like the one man she can't have.
Right.
Yeah, that
And-
makes sense.
And she ends up with the man she
it's
doesn't
not like
want.
the two of them were like, we don't know exactly what happened prior to the start of the narrative of this story, but they obviously like weren't a couple or anything. She just thought they were in her head, or he was just one of several men that were, was enamored of her. And then as soon as she finds out that he's interested in someone else, it's like she can't think of any other man but him.
Right.
Also, side note, I love the way that people take slaps in this movie. Just slaps to the face, but just like they don't move their head. They're completely unfazed by it, and they just keep going.
And she
Just
slaps
keep
Rhett.
going.
Does she slap him like 3 times?
At least once. I'm not sure how many times she slaps Rhett.
And he just responds as if there was like a bug buzzing around him. It's like, oh, yeah,
I think no. Ashley is the first person she slaps, and he's unfazed. And I'm just like, wow, that is such a choice that he just like doesn't move his head at all. And
There's
just
a
keeps
girl on girl
going.
slap as well, and there's no major affront.
No, she doesn't move her head at all. And I thought, oh, this is going to be the one where she moves her face, but no, she like seems shaken by it, but her face doesn't move at all.
Correct.
Yeah, no, Ashley Wilkes is he's a
Milk toast.
He's very we could say Wilk toast. He's very he can't just tell her no.
Right.
And she even says to him at the end of the movie where it's like, it's not a no fault scenario on either side. Like both of them
Right.
are responsible for this thing that goes on throughout this like 8, 9, 10 year story. She's like, you should have just told me that you didn't love me.
And I wrote, didn't he though? Because I felt he made it pretty
She keeps
clear.
asking him to tell her that he loves her, and he never really says, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
The thing is, he he keeps her
on a short leash.
On the
essentially.
on the hook. He keeps her on the hook the whole time. He won't definitively say, he says he won't leave Melanie for her, but he doesn't say it's because I love Melanie and I do not love you.
Yeah.
Right.
I just thought he was staying with Melanie because she's like clearly not a psychopath, and that's like what she wanted.
She was the safer bet.
He was like, yeah, I'm into you, but like you're clearly psychotic, and I'm gonna go with this girl who's like clearly not psychotic.
So is
that
it
makes sense
like a
to
Betty
me.
and Veronica type situation?
Like I'm more into you, but like I can tell that you're probably going to kill me if I marry you. So I'm going to go with the woman who's probably not going to kill me if I marry you.
She's too weak. She's dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thoughts on Melanie. Melanie, I felt was a really fascinating character because at first I thought, like, Melanie, what are you doing? Like, why are you like? She always defends Scarlett. She's Team Scarlett the whole movie, regardless of how Scarlett treats her, and Scarlett treats her pretty bad.
Yeah.
And she's 100% Team Scarlett. She defends Scarlett to other people when other people are talking about her and Scarlett's not even around. And at first I was like, is she that naive that she doesn't know what's going on with Scarlett and Ashley? But I think she knows the whole time and she just doesn't care. And she's just too good of a person. And she really respects Scarlett and maybe wants to be Scarlett a little bit. I was really impressed by that because at first I thought she was just real dumb. But I think she's smart. She knew what was going on the whole time. So she was the most interesting character for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always love the scene of her with Belle Watling, where she tells her, I'll be proud to say hello to you, and like I would come to see you to thank you for what you did for my husband. Like she just has this amazing just generosity of spirit throughout this whole story.
That was a really good scene.
And her defense, I find her defense of Scarlett, although in many times it's kind of dumb and unfounded that she defends her. But like she doesn't let India come to, she puts India out of her house because she refuses to hear bad things about Scarlett.
Right.
Imagine that kind of loyalty where, she starts off the movie be like, oh, I'm your biggest fan. I want to be more like you. I really respect you. But she is so grateful for what Scarlett did for her with the whole, staying in Atlanta when the baby was going to be born and taking her to Tara and taking care of her and taking care of the baby, that nothing Scarlett can do from that point on can turn her away from her.
Yeah. Even though Scarlett did all that very reluctantly, she made it very clear she did not want to do that. Like when she's in labor and she's like going to find the doctor's dealing with thousands of dead soldiers, but like, oh, come deliver this baby, please.
And then afterwards, she says, I hate my sister and I hate that baby.
Yeah. And it's not because she didn't know what to do when the baby was being born. She just didn't want to do it. I felt like
it was inconvenient.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scarlett is like such a reluctant good person.
Right.
Yeah. Like, she does the right thing eventually, but she really doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Particularly in that scenario, she feels guilt. Like she feels guilt later over Frank Kennedy's death, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to go to hell because I'm a bad person." She doesn't necessarily want to become a better person. She's like, "Oh, all my chickens have come home to roost."
Yeah.
So she knows the difference between right and wrong, and there are instances in the movie where she does the right thing, even though it's against her nature and against what she wants and against her own best interests.
Do we think that maybe another reason that she's nice to Melanie, other than trying to be as best a person as Scarlett can be, is to keep Ashley in her life as well? Because if she realizes if she knocks off Melanie,
100%.
she's not going to see Ashley anymore.
Yeah, and she uses Melanie, and that is very calculated. She does, and you can see it if you watch the scene where she asks Ashley to take over to work with her on the mill, and he tells her, "No, I'm going to New York." She fakes that whole thing. She pretends to cry,
and it was great.
She's only doing it to get Melanie's attention because she knows that Melanie will make Ashley do what Scarlett wants.
Right.
And Melanie will, and again, just blindly was like,
Melanie's willing to do it. She's willing to be the pawn. I like I said, at first I thought she was that ignorant of the situation, but I think she knows and she just doesn't care. I think she's just so in love with Scarlett, like everybody else is in love with Scarlett, that she's just like, you know what? It's okay. I'm okay with it. I know that, like, she has feelings. There's no way she doesn't know that Scarlett has feelings for Ashley, but she's just like, she believes in Scarlett so much that Scarlett is deep down a good person, that Melanie just forgives her for everything.
And I think she trusts Ashley too.
Yes, I think so too.
Even though he's obviously carried on this emotional attachment with Scarlett that he would never cheat on her with Scarlett.
Right.
You know, it's such a fascinating character. Like, you know, you could write a whole book on. Well, it was written based on a book, but you could do a whole character study just on Melanie.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, it's sad that she's the one who dies because she is the purest, most selfless character in the entire story.
I love the line that the doctor has. I'm going to paraphrase or something like that. It's when Melanie wants to see Scarlett first during her final time, because the other woman, we're ready. And he's like, no, she wants to see Scarlett. And then he tells Scarlett straight up, he's like, now is not the time to make yourself feel better. Like, don't go in there and upset her by trying to confess all your sins. This is her time, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He says it more concise than I just did, but you get the point.
Right.
Yeah. And she probably would have said something.
Absolutely.
She was like on a super guilt trip by that point of the movie. And,
Right.
You know, but yeah, wow. What a set of those two women. So different, but so compelling, both of them. And there's never I'm never like, oh God, like this is a boring part of the movie because we're not focused on Scarlett, because Melanie is absolutely just as compelling a character as Scarlett is. And like I said, like the bell watling scene, no one else in the narrative knows that she did that.
Right.
Like, that's not for anyone else's benefit. It's only us that gets to see her do that.
Yeah.
And it's just so telling about her character.
Right.
And it makes you realize, like, wow, how these two women who are so different from each other and need each other, even though it's really a one-sided relationship.
Right.
You know, Scarlett doesn't realize how important Melanie is to her until the very end.
Right.
Much like she does with Rhett. The whole time she's chasing after Ashley, when the two people that really cared for her and really wanted to take care of her and really loved her, she pushed them off to the side because she was chasing the one that
She couldn't have.
She couldn't have. Yeah.
The scene earlier you were saying with Melanie and Belle, it's when she's coming out of the hospital and Belle gives her the money, but we get to see the other characters kind of see their interaction with each other, because Belle's like, no one else will take my money, but I was told you would, because I just want to help, but no one else will take all this. I have
dirty money,
like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. I have all this money and no one will help me, so she's just, I want to help. This is the only way I know how. All these women think I'm beneath them, but I know that you will accept this. And at least those other women around her get to see that moment.
Yeah, it's a real demonstration of just pure kindness. All right, we're going to move on to our What Do You Mean You've Never Seen awards. This is the part of the show where we get to tell you what this movie's better than and what it's worse than. But I'm going to ask our first question, the first question we always ask of this section. I'm going to ask Tommy, is this movie better than the Muppet Movie? Because the Muppet Movie is what we judge all films by.
The original Muppet movie from the 70s. Whatever. Okay. Just making sure. For me, I will say yes, because I actually don't care for the original Muppet movie. I may have made an enemy. I'm going to be asked to leave in a second. I am a Muppet Take Manhattan, Great Muppet Caper kid. The Muppet Movie is not bad. I just don't prefer it. Now, would I watch all 4 hours of this film instead of the Muppet Movie? Hit me up later. Yes, I enjoy this film better than the Muppet Movie.
Fair enough. We're big Great Muppet Caper fans too. We love that one too.
Oh, and the Muppets Take Manhattan.
We love them all.
Okay. We love Miss Piggy's perm. You know, we love that she's on roller skates.
Joan Rivers, love it, love all of that.
All right, Jennifer, name something you like better than this movie and one thing you like less.
Okay, so one thing I like better than this movie that I've never actually done, but this movie made me want to do, was take a nap in the middle of a party. That sounds great. And Scarlett doesn't want to do it, and I'm like, Scarlett,
She's the
take
renegade.
that
Go
nap,
for
girl.
it.
That sounds odd. If I was in the middle of a long, and you have to assume this is like an all-day barbecue that probably goes into the night, right? And sometimes that's exhausting, especially like we said, when it's so hot and it looks hot and you feel the heat watching it. And so a party nap sounds awesome.
But I don't know. You're also sharing a bed with like 6 other women.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Being
women taking
probably
a
a lot of body heat.
Yeah.
Agreed, but
I wouldn't have wanted to.
But if someone, I mean, taking that part away, and obviously you don't want, the people fanning you, very problematic. But if, I was in the middle of the party and someone's like, go take a nap, Jennifer.
Yeah.
I'd be like, Thank you. I will go take that.
Yeah, I think nap should be incorporated into all parties. Just
It'll
be like,
take
okay,
me
now
20
it's
minutes to
nap
get
time.
undressed, but I'm going to take a nap.
100%. Something I liked less than this movie, lots of things, because this movie was phenomenal. This movie was great. One thing I like less than this movie is the concept of slavery, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Hot take.
All right. Now the big question is our biggest award. Who won this movie and who lost the movie? Who do you think won the movie, Max?
Who do I think won this movie? I think probably Rhett Butler. Cause I don't know. Did anybody win? I don't know. I'll say Rhett Butler because he got out of there and he got some sassy remarks out of the way too. But otherwise, like Scarlett definitely didn't win, but she's gonna keep on going until she does win because she's like that. But yeah,
Relentless.
I think Rhett won because he I don't know. He took too long to get out of there, but when he got out of there, he didn't look back. He was like, no, and she's like there begging and pleading, and she's like, no, I'm gonna walk out. And that leads up to the whole, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn line, which everybody knows and just knows, I guess. Yeah, I think he won. I think he won with his ultimate sass.
He tells it like it is.
He does.
All right. Who lost the movie? Jennifer.
We didn't really talk about her, but I feel like Bonnie, because at first I thought she won because she had a great dad. And that was what I was talking about before, how these characters, you hate them, then you love them, then you hate them. And, Rhett gets really problematic towards the end of the movie. He seems very misogynist, there's all that. But he's the best dad, and especially for the time. I mean, I can't imagine that was a common thing, even in the 30s when the movie was made, to show a depiction of a dad like that. And then poor thing gets forced to ride side saddle and just goes down. So R.I.P. Bonnie, justice for Bonnie.
And the pony too, because he shot the pony.
Oh,
He
the
did
pony
shoot
really
the
lost
pony.
it.
Pony didn't do anything wrong, just
Yeah.
did what he was told.
Right.
But, if I were Scarlett also, if I saw that my child was being taught how to jump and that was the exact way my father died, I would be like, no, don't do that.
And that took too long for her to figure that out.
Yeah.
That took
She
way
just
too long.
was very uninterested
It was like
in
the
anything
last
Bonnie
moment,
was
and
doing.
I was like,
So.
I knew that was going to happen the
Yeah.
second I saw her riding on that pony. I would be like, get off of that pony. No pony riding from you.
I got to give respect though to that the British nanny who let the candle go out or let the lights go out.
Oh, she was so
She
sassy.
straight up calls him
Yeah.
out. She's like, you can't. Let the kid scream for 2 nights and she'll be fine. She'll sleep. Because Bonnie died being proud like her mother. She was basically acting like her mother. Like, no, I'm going to jump. I'm going to do it. They told her, no, don't. Her dad, who she loved so much, his dad who loved her, they're like, no, don't do it. But she's like, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. That happened, and all I thought, she shouldn't have died. I don't think Bonnie should have died. But I'm not glad she's dead. But let that be known. But it was that thing of that the British nanny was like, you're coddling her too much.
Yeah.
You're giving her everything she wants. Congratulations. You made a bitchy daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he doted on her, and I really respected him for that. But the problem too, I mean, Scarlett wasn't involved enough because Scarlett would have reined that crap in, but Scarlett just was kind of worried about her own vanity at that point, and that's where I turned on her again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, she was more interested in her own agenda, the mill and keeping Ashley on his leash, and she was not involved enough.
getting skinny again, which I'm like, girl, you are so skinny.
So skinny.
I do have a question. So right before Scarlett falls down the stairs, she indicates that she's pregnant again. Was she really, or was she being manipulative?
No, she really was.
She really was. Okay.
Yeah.
I think she was, yeah.
Yeah, and she loses the baby. They don't.
It's implied.
In the book, it's more spelled out, but yeah, in the movie, it's more of just causes her to have a miscarriage, and then again, there's that thing where they both want to be together, but they're both too proud, and they're both like, well,
Very Sam and Diane of them.
Oh, okay. Super like that.
super, yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's where the cliches come from.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of that, I do have a question, another one. So the carrying her up the stairs, that whole scene, which we know. Okay.
Yeah.
Question though. So the next shot is of her singing in bed, waking up. And I just wrote, did they just have hate sex?
Pretty
Like,
much.
I understand it also.
Yeah.
Potentially rape. I get that, which is
Yeah.
unpleasant. But she wakes up with a smile and a song. So did they have
Maybe
hate
she
sex?
manipulated him into doing that, and that was her plan the whole time. I'm going
Yeah.
to make him mad, and then this is what's going to happen. And oh, my plan worked. That's how I had written.
Because I'm not 100% sure. You know, she says that she went downstairs because she heard a noise or whatever. He says, no, you were coming down to drink. I think she went downstairs because she knew he was down there.
Yeah.
Because I swear you know, I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure that there's this immediately preceding that. She's in her room, she's looking at the clock, and she hears him come in the door. And then she decides to go downstairs.
Right.
She was whatever her end game was, she was definitely looking to have a confrontation with him.
Yeah, I think she
Yeah.
was looking for attention from him because I
Yeah.
feel like she was feeling really neglected by him at that moment. You know, like he was mad at her because he didn't feel like she was a good mom. You know, there was that whole thing. So I think she was just trying to get any attention from him, good or bad, and she got what she wanted both ways, I guess.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see that scene, Tommy. Was that a deleted scene that was on the DVD?
And she doesn't fight. I mean, you know, I don't want to get too into this because I could get canceled or whatever. But she doesn't really put up a fight when he picks her up and carries her up the stairs. Like she and we know if she doesn't want something to happen to her, she's gonna really fight for it. You know, and obviously he can overpower her, but she probably would have put up a bigger fight if she wasn't looking for what ended up happening. She wanted that passion with him.
It doesn't make his motive in doing it any better.
Correct.
But like I said, I think she manipulated this situation. She was getting what she wanted out of that situation too. Again, not victim blaming, trying not to. I mean, in this specific circumstance, I think Scarlett's resourceful. She gets what she wants.
So what we want to do now is we want to just get final thoughts and feelings about the movie. We'll start with you, Tommy.
I'll look over my list real quick, but no, this was a great film, and I would absolutely recommend it to someone who's got a lot of time, or like you were saying earlier, Jennifer, even if you don't have a lot of time, you can totally watch this in like anytime there's a fade out or anytime text comes on the screen, pause it, go do something else. You can come back. You were saying earlier, like the movie is just episodic in that it doesn't rely on anything that happened earlier. You don't need to remember like, oh yeah, she winked at that guy at the party. You know what I mean? There's nothing you need to remember about any of that kind of stuff.
It's not The Sixth Sense.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's no flashbacks, except for that one audio flashback where they're all saying Tara in her head. We just keep hearing that over and over. I mean, I just have a lot of notes and silly observations. The party in Atlanta, when she's like selling stuff, she's in black, she's still in mourning, selling stuff. Is it Christmas? Because Oh Christmas Tree is playing in the background.
I thought it was. I thought there was Christmas decorations.
I wasn't 100% sure because I remember seeing pines, I think. And then later, when she's walking through the field with all the bodies and everything, and all the mannequins and everything on the ground, it's playing a very like off-key version of Oh Christmas Tree. So is it Christmas time then as well?
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, is that the Christmas tree song?
It is. It's just like, is it Christmas time? So, and just really quick, the things I noticed that I wrote down very MST3K as I watch films, if you've ever watched a movie with me.
100%.
Right early in the film when they get to the barbecue, Ashley, I've been looking for you everywhere. You just got to the party like 2 minutes ago. You were not looking for her. You were not looking for him. That's not, no.
Where was she looking for him?
Exactly. She just arrived. She walked up the stairs. Oh, there he is.
I think I had that written down too. Like, what? You were? No, you weren't.
Aunt Pity Pat's hair. I'm here for it.
Yes.
No, that is like it's very reminiscent to me of Miss Piggy's hairstyle in Muppet Christmas Carol.
Yes.
You're right.
It does, doesn't it?
It does. Buy a blanket, beat a Yankee. This is a sign in the back of the Christmas party. It says buy a blanket, beat a
Beating
Yankee.
Yankee.
Yeah.
I love that.
With the blanket?
Sure.
I think
why not?
the money you're spending on buying this blanket, we can use that money to beat the Yankees. But I guess you can beat some of the blanket, put some soap in it and hit.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, that poor. Okay, you know who lost in this movie? That poor horse who brought them back to Tara.
Oh
It's
my
foaming at the
God.
mouth. She whips it. It drops.
Give that horse some water.
Sorry about it, Bonnie.
Yeah.
That was heartbreaking.
I hate that. When did that horse eat or drink anything?
Never.
That was
When it
heartbreaking.
was
And
standing
then they
underneath
tied the
that
cow to
lake.
the back of it, so now it was dragging the cow along
Yep.
with the cart full of people.
I will say this so carefully. My observation is about the character, not the status in life. Prissy, come on. Come on. I'm not talking about her station. I'm not talking about her job. I'm talking about her as a character who isn't helpful at all.
No, I wrote that down.
but-
So whiny too. So whiny.
Yeah.
Oh, it was hard.
always every time I watch this, I'm always very happy when our time with Prissy is over.
Right.
Because she kind of disappears right after they move to where Rhett and Scarlett get married.
Her presence makes me uncomfortable.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
And you don't want to root for Scarlett to slap her, but when she does, I'm not like, well,
I get why. Like, I don't know.
She's no Mammy, that's for sure.
And Scarlett has already slapped several people at this point, so it's not
like,
I don't
she
think it's
slaps
racially
everybody.
based.
She does slap everybody. That's her
You're
go-to,
frustrating.
and we love slash hater
she is
for
slap
it.
happy.
Yeah.
I know.
Slap happy.
Ashley's birthday cake is gigantic.
That cake looks so good.
It does look delicious.
It does look really good. And it has like these big candles surrounding it. It was
Yeah.
like
It's very
a
like
really
white Christmas,
nice,
I want to
table
eat that
candles.
cake and then take a nap. That's what I want to do at my next party.
When I don't know if it's when Bonnie first gets the pony, but when Rhett goes to talk to her and she's with Pork, they're outside, like, and whatever. How old is Pork at this point? Because Bonnie's like 5, maybe, but Pork has already been gray-haired back at Tara when Scarlett first comes back. Like, how old is Pork and Mammy? How old are these characters now?
Pork is like 80 years old by that
Right.
point.
Well, and Mammy said that she says like 3 generations. She was Scarlett's mom.
She was Ellen O'Hara's mammy. So
Oh my
like,
God. And her only complaint is her back, because she asked her after the hate sex, and she's like, "How are you this morning, Mammy?" She talks about her back.
Oh,
and
my
that's
back.
it.
Right.
That's all she has to say.
and I want to be like, Scarlett, tell her to sit down.
Yeah.
Right.
Take your own tray.
It's like you're about to make her lift this like tray of silver. Like,
Exactly.
just let her sit down.
And that is heavy stuff. And then my last 2 ones were just that when Melanie comes over to the house after Bonnie has passed away, Mammy tells her that Bonnie has been lying in state for, quote, days. That is a child in the Georgia heat. That's a body. Forget child. That's a body in the Georgia heat lying in state for days.
Maybe that's why Melanie dies. Because she
They can't stand the smell.
The smell drops.
That's what finally kills
That's
her.
it.
The smell of a dead
She
child.
collapsed right after she comes out of the room.
Because she even says, "I'm
does
going
her
to go
in.
help Scarlett." Drop.
Yeah.
And then my last one was, and you might have this information on your IMDb or whatever, because I know this movie set the studio into a lot of debt. What was the set budget for this film?
Wow.
The house, everything they're rebuilding, it's like Auntie Mame, but times 5,000, like the redo of all these mansions and everything. Because all these sets, these are real. There's no CG.
No, it's famously on the MGM lot, they had those buildings set on fire.
Yeah.
Wow.
They had to build all of those buildings and then they had to tear them down.
Yeah, because they burned them for, was it for King Kong? There was some movie they burned them for. But
I'm looking at the budget is listed at $3.85 million, and that's in 1938, 1939
Oh my God.
money.
Wow.
I'm trying to find
Inflation
the
calculator.
inflation calculator.
And I know there were a lot of back and forth with production team from like Wizard of Oz went over to Gone with the Wind.
Oh, yeah.
People went back and forth.
Yeah,
Directors too. I think.
The credited director for both movies is Victor Fleming. I don't have like the whole details in front of me, but the original director of Gone with the Wind was George Cukor, who later on who directed a lot of famous movies back in that era. He was very famously considered a woman's director. Like he directed a lot of like The Women or whatever. So he was originally scheduled to direct Gone with the Wind. There was a problem with whoever the original director on Wizard of Oz was. So he went over to help Wizard of Oz in its pre-production period so that while he was waiting to start Gone with the Wind. And he was the one that told them to get rid of Judy Garland's blonde wig and have her wear her regular hair, and like made a lot of choices that are like
Feminist choices.
Very
feminist choices, but also like part of what makes the movie
Right.
great. You know? So then he came back to do Gone with the Wind, didn't get along with Clark Gable, so they fired him and replaced him with Victor Fleming. Or Victor Fleming went and was directing Wizard of Oz and then left the set of Wizard of Oz to come over and direct Gone with the Wind. And then one of his assistants or proteges finished The Wizard of Oz, but he's credited as the director of both movies. So George Cukor and Victor Fleming both worked on both of them.
Wow. Okay.
Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay. One thing, I mean, we couldn't, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about was how the story is also told through the costuming, which, you know, we talked about how we really like costuming on this show. But you go from Scarlett wearing these elaborate gowns, even when it's completely not practical for her to do so, like not just at parties, she's wearing these just to go to town. She's wearing them at the hospital, a hoop skirt, like so unnecessary. But then when it really came down to it, and when she's rebuilding Tara, you don't see her in those dresses anymore until she has to again. because that's when she turns resourceful, and that's when she makes the curtain dress. And
To go to a horse stable.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
the curtain dress is amazing. I feel like if it's not, it should be in the Smithsonian. I'm sure it probably is somewhere in some costume shop. But I feel like you could just, what point of the movie you're in, what Scarlett's thinking just based on her wardrobe. And I thought that was just an awesome way to tell the story. And it's just beautiful to look at. And the music is amazing. Like the whole time I was just like, oh, this is just so pretty and so just beautiful to listen to and to look at.
Absolutely. This movie was very much a pleasure to watch. I loved most seconds of it, at least. I can't say every second. What's left of this thing? I think that the most famous line of this movie should not be, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. It should be, after she kills the Union soldier, she says, well, I guess I've done a murder.
I love that.
I guess I've done murder. Yeah.
Guess I killed him.
And I was like, that's great. Fantastic.
Can I add another line I really love from this movie that never gets any love is when she goes to visit Rhett wearing the curtain dress, and she's like, I can't believe you're in jail, and not even a regular jail, a horse jail.
I love that too. I laughed out loud at that.
Good. Yeah. This movie had anything. There was slapping. There was antebellum twerking that happened. Yeah, it just had everything. It just had everything you gotta love from it. It had Scarlett just doing her best, being like an absolute villain and like loving
And rooting for her.
Right.
And rooting for her because you get why she's doing everything that she's doing, but the way she's doing it is just, it's crazy.
She got style. She got flair. That's how she became the Mammy.
I guess she was probably after.
Not the Mammy.
Scarlett.
After Melanie died.
Scarlett's got beauty, she's got grace, and she's going to kill you. Like she's got everything.
Yes, I love the characters in this movie and every single insane choice they make. I love how Rhett Butler continues to pursue her even though she doesn't give a crap about him.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to watch their interplay. Like I feel that Clark Gable and Vivien Leigh are like their chemistry is really, really great. And she's a bitch and he's a scoundrel and Melanie's an angel and Ashley is
He's there.
He's there.
He looks like a ghost. Is it just me? I was like, is that a ghost? Oh, it's just Ashley.
It's interbreeding all these years. Yeah.
I guess so.
They're very pale.
Now
all of
let's
them.
see who Ashley really is.
It's like
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
The guy who runs
It's
the
India.
It's old man Witter. Whatever his last name was.
Yeah.
And the amount of use of the term white trash in this film, by every color. Every color uses the term white trash in this film.
I love
Loved
that. I
it.
love that. Mammy says it like 15
Yeah,
times.
just like white trash.
Mammy is like, you people are garbage.
Yeah.
Maybe Mammy kind of wins the movie for me because she gets her fancy red petticoat and everybody likes her and she never gets slapped.
And I get why
she has a bad back, but
and I get why she stays completely after the Civil War. Like I kind of get it.
One thing that made me mad at Mammy though, because she was the one who forced Rhett to make Bonnie ride side saddle, and that's what killed her. And I really didn't want to bring it up, but I feel like it was Mammy's fault.
I think that's Scarlett's fault. Scarlett should have shut that down real quick.
Fair.
If she was more involved, that's
Yeah.
But would she still have
that would've
fallen
been on
off?
her.
I don't ride horses. Would she still have fallen off even if she was astride?
I feel like no. I feel like that's why he says you've only been riding side saddle for a time.
the way
she might not have landed as badly, but I don't think that horse was ever going to jump over that pole.
Yeah.
It was way too high for him. And
He was little,
because it's not like he jumped it and she fell off as he was jumping. He came to a stop and she did what happened when Christopher Reeve fell off his horse, flew off the front and landed.
Doesn't Bonnie say that she added a bar to it?
Yeah, she raised the bar.
And also,
true.
how old would you say Bonnie is at this point?
6?
5 or 6?
Yeah, she shouldn't have access to a horse and horse equipment. That should be something that's
They're rich.
Yeah.
They're rich, but they shouldn't
was
be.
raising
A
her to do
6-year-old shouldn't be able to just walk up into
And
a
we know
horse.
Port's not going to stop her.
Right.
Yeah, because he's
too
1,000 years old.
Childproof your reconstruction house, your reconstruction mansion a little bit, because yeah, I don't know. Those stairs look beautiful, but obviously are dangerous.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is a lot of stairs.
A lot of stairs.
How tall must the ceiling of that first floor be?
Crazy.
It must
Yeah.
be like 20 feet high.
At
Yeah.
least.
Just see Madeline Ashton falling down the Death
Oh
Becomes
my
Her.
goodness, with a broken neck. Have you guys seen Death Becomes Her?
No.
What?
Put it on the list.
We have to add that to the
we have to
list.
put it on
Do I have to
list?
leave? Do I have to leave this party right now?
No,
before something
I mean,
happens?
that's the point of this podcast, right? Is to see these movies that we've never watched. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun when you watch it and you're like, oh my god, this is terrible, and you just want to make fun of it. But it's also fun when you watch it and you're like, this
Yeah.
is such a nice surprise.
Yeah, like Gone with the Wind was for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind was an amazing surprise. I was dreading watching this movie.
I mean, it's
and
funny
I
that
loved
so
it.
far the movies I've liked that we've done on this podcast have been 100% the movies I did not want to watch because I didn't think I would like Godfather and this one. And the ones that maybe are more up my alley based on other movies I like Princess Bride and Sleepless in Seattle, I was like, eh.
Yeah.
So far, that's what makes me happy we're doing this podcast. It's a great experiment. I'm learning a lot.
And,
We're 100% bringing you back, Tommy. We know
thank
there's
you.
got to
For
be
sure.
tons on the
we
list.
obviously have to bring him back for Death Becomes Her.
Yes. If the listeners could see my eyes that I made when what?
I got a glare.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have not been in a Disney entertainment break room.
Oh, no.
No. Someday, maybe.
Someday, maybe. We will see.
All right. That's about it for Gone with the Wind.
Can I just say that I want to give it 4.5 out of 5 curtain dresses.
Yes.
It doesn't get the 0.5 more only because of, like Vic was saying, the more problematic elements.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would agree.
She saw it in the window and she just couldn't resist it.
Oh, that's my favorite. I love that skit, and I've seen it a million times, and I'd never watched the movie, but I got the joke.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. 4.5 out of 5 curtain dresses.
Yeah, same. I would have loved to see this movie directed by Alfred Hitchcock, or I can't stress
He
enough how
wanted more
much.
murder in
I
this
can't
movie.
stress enough how much I just wanted this movie to be a thriller.
Max,
if this
a man
movie
got shot in the face.
I know, it was great. It was awesome.
He wanted more of that, apparently.
I wanted more of it.
More
I don't
men
know.
get shot in the face.
I would have loved to see this movie as a thriller if there was, less slavery, less Civil War, and it just. I would have loved to see Scarlett in different settings than I would love to see more of that character in
like
modern
Hand
film.
That Rocks the Cradle, but with Scarlett and Melanie.
Is that another
There are
movie
lots
I
of
haven't
white
seen?
faces in
I've
this
never
movie.
seen that movie.
I haven't
Oh
seen that
gosh,
movie
that's
either.
another one we have to do.
Okay, making
yeah.
notes on this podcast.
What a great experience this was, and it's been so much fun getting to experience it. We're so happy you came to talk with us about it, Tommy,
you.
and glad you got to experience this film for
This
the
was
first
such
time.
a good
and-
one for us to have a guest on, and
Yeah.
we were so excited to have Tommy. Tommy has probably the same taste in shows and movies as me and Jonathan do for the most part. We talk about it all the time. So I was really excited to have him on, and we picked a really good movie. So thank you for coming on, Tommy.
And thank you for making me watch this movie because I loved it.
Right?
Well, that's what we're all about here, forcing people to watch cinema.
Yes.
So hopefully all of you listeners at home or wherever you're listening are joining in with us and taking this journey with us on experiencing these films for the first time.
And if we got any facts wrong, don't yell at us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're super, we don't root for the South to win the Civil War. We're very happy with who won. So
Pro-union.
we are very pro-union. And I just want to say one more thing. I always find it so hilarious in the first scene at the barbecue how these people think that the war is only going to go for 2 weeks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I know.
It's it'll take 2 weeks for you guys to get to wherever the first battle is going to be.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand either. I was even if you're being really optimistic about your odds of winning this war, you gotta walk there, right? Or maybe take a horse. Where are you
Hope
going?
the horse doesn't foam at the mouth and die.
Oh my God.
They're all running out to go enlist. They're all running. Even the dogs are going for some reason. I was more worried about the safety of the dogs because people were running. They were on horses going to enlist. And these poor dogs are just running between people.
How many dogs were trampled in this?
None that we saw.
thing?
None that we saw. But we did see a horse get whipped to death.
She kept beating that horse, and that poor thing was so
Another horse
tired.
got shot. The poor horses in this movie. Justice for the horses.
There we go.
Yeah, this was This movie is not kind to animals. Hopefully no animals were actually hurt in the making of the movie. All right. Well, we want to thank you very much for joining us, Tommy.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the time.
Do you have anything you want to plug? Anything
I have nothing.
in your life that you want to encourage people to do?
Help me pay my bills. Come to Disney.
You can Venmo Tommy if you're interested.
But nope. Just live and love and everything.
Awesome.
So I just had a blast doing this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
on.
for
We're definitely
coming.
going to have you back, 100%.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Love to.
All right. Thank you so much, Tommy. We really appreciate you coming in and recording with us and watching this movie with us.
Sitting through a 4-hour movie.
Sitting through a 4-hour movie.
That's dedication to a podcast that you're coming to visit.
Exactly. and coming in and being here with us,
Physically.
in person. Yeah, we really appreciate that. And now it's time for us to discuss our next episode. We are coming in for episode number 5, and the film that we are going to be watching is Iron Man. Yes, the very first film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. A film that I have seen many, many times.
Thousands of times.
Literally thousands of times.
times.
And
Probably.
the person in this group that has not seen it is Jennifer.
Oh, for 5, you guys. I promise I have seen movies before. I know everybody's probably like, wow, has Jennifer ever seen a movie? But
Are you a time traveler?
I guess. I don't know. I don't remember movies. So I've seen a few Marvel movies. I think probably around 5. This is not one I have seen. We're probably going to go through a lot of Marvel movies on this podcast. This, of course, being the first one, is an important one for us to do. It's an important one for me to watch. I haven't seen it. If I had to guess what it's about, I'm going to guess that it's the origin story of how he becomes Iron Man. So maybe he gets into some sort of accident where his heart explodes and he has to make a new heart. I don't know. I don't know how he becomes Iron Man. I know that Robert Downey Jr. is very smart in it. I know that, is Gwyneth Paltrow a part of this?
Yes, she's
She's there? Okay. And I know he's like super rich. And that's all I got. I don't know how he becomes Iron Man. I don't know who the villain is. I don't know anything else about it. I know he talks to some guy named Jarvis. I know that. But
Yeah.
Jarvis is a robot, question mark?
He's artificial intelligence.
Oh, okay, okay. So I've seen a couple of the Avengers movies where they're all together, but I haven't seen any that are just focused on Iron Man. So I don't know that much about his character. Whenever he came up on screen in Avengers, I was like, I'd rather watch Thor personally. I like him the best, but I'm interested to watch it. I want to see the origin story. I want to see how this whole Marvel, sort of juggernaut started. So I'm interested to watch it.
Yeah, I have a confession. I was in the same boat as you for a long time, Jennifer. The first MCU movie I ever saw was Avengers that I saw on an airplane. For a multitude of reasons, I was out of the country a lot for my job when the MCU was really getting started. So I hadn't seen a lot of them until several years after they came out. And when I first watched Avengers, I was like, oh, so I'm just watching Robert Downey Jr. play Robert Downey Jr. So that's probably what it feels like to people who haven't watched the Iron Man movies. And I think you get a much better understanding of the character and why he is the way he is when you watch his films. Similar to like with any of them, when you watch their solo movies, there's a lot more character development that you get to see, and this is a fun watch.
It is, and it's a very interesting one because it was before Marvel sort of went straight-laced with their movies, so there are some things that are like a little bit off the wall that you won't see in a Marvel movie probably ever again, like some things that sort of surprise you. Yeah, this is I'm pretty excited to talk about this movie.
This is a hard turn from Gone with the Wind, you guys.
It's
Yes, it's a
very different movie, I'm guessing.
I will tell you, you said you
basically the
didn't
same.
know who the bad guy is. When you see the bad guy on screen, you'll instantly know who it is.
Ooh,
And
okay.
I'd even dare say like the villain is not really an important part of this movie. Like sometimes when I think about the first Iron Man, I don't really remember like what the villain plot is in this, because it's not really about that. It's more about establishing Tony Stark as a character.
Right.
Okay.
But this is actually my favorite of the 3 Iron Man movies.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
So I think we're going to have a good time watching it. If any of you out there have not seen it, you can watch it on Disney Plus, as are all of the MCU movies, with the exception of The Incredible Hulk and the Spider-Man solo films.
Yeah.
But any of the rest of them are all available on Disney Plus. And I think there's also, if you do watch this for the first time, or if you're doing a rewatch, the special features on Disney Plus are really good. It's basically a full-blown, separated into parts, but it's like a full-blown documentary about the making of the movie. And, you know, this was a trailblazer. It was a character that was not super popular. You know, they're kind of were pulling from the B list to make this movie, and it was a big success.
I never heard of Iron Man as a comic book character
I don't think I had
this,
either.
and I had only kind of even heard of Captain America. I feel like Marvel as a whole, except for obviously Spider-Man was a big one, but always in my head growing up, before these movies started becoming popular, it was like Batman and Superman were where it's at, and they were the superheroes. I had never even hardly heard of Iron Man. I know they referenced him in one Seinfeld episode, and that's about it.
Yeah. I think prior to the MCU, because I'm not a comic book guy.
Yeah.
I like superhero movies. Max is.
Comic book
I like
people,
superhero
please don't
movies.
at me. I don't want to hear it. I know. I haven't read them. I get it. I know.
I wasn't into comic books as a child. I'm more of a recent. It's been like the past 4 years I got into comic books. So I don't have that much of a connection with that.
Comic books aren't like a medium that's for me. But I enjoy the storytelling. I love superhero movies. I like action movies. And, my knowledge of Marvel was pretty much Spider-Man and the X-Men, and that was it.
Yeah. Same.
And I guess I knew about the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Because
there was a couple of those movies back in the day, too.
Back in the day.
They were not great.
And
not good.
Again, like so much lesser than it was like, this is the B role. And whereas Superman and Batman are the A superheroes.
And one could make an argument that Marvel has now overtaken DC, particularly in audience popularity with these films. So we're excited.
DC just can't really get it right. It's just.
I'll watch Aquaman again if you guys haven't watched that one.
We've watched
it. I love a giant octopus playing the drums.
We watched Aquaman in the Netherlands, but like a couple of weeks before it came out here, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So Iron Man is our next film. We will, it's going to be interspersed. We're going to be working our way through any of the MCU movies that Jennifer hasn't seen, because I've seen all of them, and I think Max has seen all of them as well.
Yeah, I have. At this point, there was a point where I hadn't filled in all of those gaps. I remember I watched Iron Man with my brother when it came out, but it was like, I didn't keep up with Marvel at all until I met you, Jonathan, and we started going to see the movies again. I had like completely fallen out of the Marvel universe.
Well, you're welcome.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
All right. Look forward to that episode coming up. We want to thank our special guest again for coming out and talking with us about Gone with the Wind. Hope you guys enjoyed this. We hope that you're going to check us out on our social media pages. We have Facebook, Instagram.
Check the links below in the description.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've got them all. Want to give a special shout out to James Alexander, who is designing our new cover art for our our podcast avatar for everything.
Pleasant View Designs.
Pleasant View Designs on Instagram. Please check that out. He takes commission, and if you have any artistic stuff that you would like designed specifically for you, he'd be happy to talk to you about it.
He makes really cool stickers, you guys, if you like stickers.
Lots of stickers. So thank you, James, for getting that to us, and we hope you like the new cover art. We certainly are big fans of it. And that's going to be it for this episode. My name's Jonathan. I'm happy to be your host. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and pass it off to my co-hosts.
Thanks, everyone. Shout out to anyone who watched a 4-hour movie to listen to this podcast. I hope it was worth it. I feel like this was 100% worth it. It was worth every minute of that 4 hours. And once again, thanks to Tommy. Shout out to him. He actually reached out to us because he wanted to be on this. And I'm so excited that people are excited about this.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, downloading, checking us out. we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate the support. And thank you, and good night.
And hope nobody ends up in horse jail.
Yeah.
No horse jail for you.
Goodbye, folks. We'll see you next episode.
See you next time.
What Do You Mean You've Never Seen is written by Jonathan Colon. Theme song and editing by Maxwell Abelman. Cover art by James Alexander. Your hosts are Jonathan Colon, Jennifer Branch, and Max Abelman. Please visit whatdoyoumeanyou'veneverseen.buzzsprout.com for more great episodes and links to our social media and Patreon pages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the movies.